Continuation of Chapter 11. Seek the causes. What should they have done? They should have reflected, from what do these things proceed? What are the causes? For the cause is known. It comes from the persecution by the Protestants that the Church has been suffering for 4 centuries. It is also the result of secularism, which has been introduced into all state schools. And as secularism, little by little, consolidated its foothold, it was atheism that spread. Necessarily, in such conditions, atheism could not help but gain an increasing number of adherents. Then the lay state put pressure on people, telling them in effect not to go to church if they wished to keep their position or advance in their careers in the administration or the army. One must not be Catholic. One must not go to church. Confronted by these pressures, which were applied in every domain, in the lay institutions and in the secular or even the communist communes, what can be done? This is the question that the bishops should have asked. This should have been their essential preoccupation. But instead of seeing the evil where it was and still is to be found, namely in the vast conspiracy of secularism against the Church and against our Lord Jesus Christ, the bishops preferred to say that it was the Church that had been mistaken and did not know what to do. They averred that if the Church had known how to get along with everyone who is against her and who fight against us, this would not have happened. This is a complete error. Then, at the council, they wanted to formalize a marriage between the Catholic ideas of the Church and the modern ideas which, as we have seen, have been condemned by all the popes prior to Vatican II. Such a marriage is absolutely impracticable, impossible. Secularism and desecration, a total disaster. The result is complete radical catastrophe. How can one think that it is possible to reach an arrangement with those whose end has always been, and still is, the destruction of the Catholic religion and the Church? They bring to bear the weight of their moral authority, of the priesthood, for the destruction of the Church. And the disaster is worse still. It is they who have succeeded in secularizing the Church. They begin by casting aside the cassock, thus, by secularizing, they have become laymen. Then, by removing everything that was sacred in the churches, the Blessed Sacrament was withdrawn from the tabernacles and exiled to a niche in the wall, or, even worse, many times one does not know where it is. The altars, the beautiful altars representing the sacred mysteries, were thrown out and replaced by a table. Nothing was left. The Stations of the Cross were taken down. The holy objects carted to the flea markets. They secularized everything, believing that by acting in this way they would attract all the people with increasingly secular ideas into the churches. It was madness. The priests associated with the enemies of our Lord. They no longer believe in our Lord. The priests thought that by dressing in lay fashion, the laymen would be much more amiable towards them, and that they would be everyone's friend, and that they would bring them to church. Not only did they not draw anyone, they practically chased away half of the Catholics from the churches. As for them, what are they now? They are no longer men of the church. It is over. People no longer recognize them as being men of the church. It is a frightful result. Our own position was constant. We told them that they were taking a wrong turn, that the solution was to return to the tradition of the church, and do once more what the church had always done. We warned them that those who fight against the church are enemies, and that we should not compromise with them, that we should not resemble them. On the contrary, more than ever, we must be true representatives of our Lord Jesus Christ, and emphasize the mystery, the supernatural, and grace. We affirmed that this should be manifest in the churches, that the churches should be somewhat an antechamber of paradise. Consequently, when we see statues of the saints, they should be models for us. Our churches should make us think of heaven and all the virtues that the church has brought forth. But they tell us, you are the past, we are the future. We are marching with progress, and we shall prevail. But they will come to nothing, because they nonetheless represent authority and obedience, even if according to their own theses there is no more authority nor obedience, no more social inequalities. Yet these differences have in reality been willed by God and cannot be eliminated. For that does not depend on us. They are willed by Him for the practice of charity. No longer accepting the church as it had been before, they changed everything: the Bible, the Catechism, the Mass. They have changed everything. The lead came from the top. The churchmen themselves accused the church. All the bad examples leading to change came from above. The bishops wrote letters to this effect. All the commissions, liturgical and other, had but one goal: change. When Pope John XXIII read his letter at the beginning of the council, in which, in essence, in the name of the church, he beat his breast and said, mea culpa, to the Protestants, it was profoundly scandalous. That the Pope should practically accuse his predecessors of having acted badly towards the Protestants, and then add that had they proceeded differently, perhaps the Protestants would never have separated from the Church, was utterly scandalous. On the contrary, if the popes had been firmer and more severe towards the Protestants as soon as they manifested themselves, perhaps the princes would have fought against Protestantism from its inception. It would have died in the egg. But because out of the goodness of their hearts they were willing to discuss interminably, while they talked, the heresy spread. And once the princes themselves began to convert to Protestantism, it became a political matter. All hope was ended, and the massacres began, as well as the looting and destruction of churches. Then the wars of religion opened fire, and they were horrible. If one might formulate a reflection, it would be to remark that the popes were too good towards the Protestants, and not to say that they should have tried to be more understanding.